Ed, if you can mute your phone, that'd be great.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was. I'll do that right now.
Okay, we're good to go live.
Great. Good evening and welcome to the Nora Common Council Finance and Claims Committee meeting for today, Thursday, April 13th, starting at 7:05 p.m. And we'll start with the Finance Committee roll call. We have with us Council Member Nora Najelski-Eichner, Council Member Diana Revolus, Council Member Ed Camacho, and Council Member Greg Burnett. So we have a quorum for this evening. Moving on to the agenda, under public participation. We did not receive any emails. Is there anyone who has dialed in from the public who wishes to speak? If you would like to speak, please raise your hand virtually, and we will allow you to bring you over as a panelist to share your thoughts. Okay, not seeing anyone raising their hand. I'll ask one more time if there's anyone wishing to speak during public participation. If you can raise your hand virtually, we will move you to a panelist and allow you to participate. Okay, seeing none, we will continue closed public participation. And just one update to the agenda. Just reordering the agenda. So the next item will be the approval of the minutes of the Finance Committee meeting, March 9th, 2023. And then immediately following the minutes, we will then have the update from our tax assessor on the reval process. And then we will have our update from the tax collector. So just moving item 8 up to after item 4. So with that, item 4 is approval of the minutes of the Finance Committee from March 9th, 2023. Do we have any additions, deletions, or changes from the minutes? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Diana Revolus. I'll call for the question. All those in favor show by a sign of aye, virtually raising your hand, or verbal aye.
Aye.
Ed and Nora.
I abstain. I wasn't there at the last meeting.
Okay, Nora, your vote. Nora, are you there? Okay, well, we have 2 affirmatives, so the motion passes and the minutes are approved as presented. So moving on, that moves us to the update from our tax assessor, Paul Gorman, our assistant tax assessor. So over to you, Paul, for an update on the reval process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Forgive me if I seem a little nervous. This is my first time doing one of these. So I hope everybody saw in the email that went out during the week with the statistical update that was provided by the project manager, Gary Fields, with his prediction that he felt as though that by today we would be at about 30% of all the houses being 30% of all the properties being visited. That would put us at, excuse me one second while I do a quick calculation, at approximately 8,100 homes visited by now. We are tracking fairly well, in my opinion, and also in the opinion of Paul Freya, who is also being retained by the city as an advisor during this interim period, that the progress that's been made through the winter months and the early spring months, that their vision is right on track. They've been delivering the deliverables that they are required to, as far as visiting the homes, leaving door hangers, sending letters as follow-ups, asking for interior inspections when people aren't home. And I know that there's been some concern about that it's only at 20% for interior inspections being allowed of the people that have been home, which is running at about 25%, which is understandable because there's a lot of people that everybody works. In my career, 20% is about what I would say in the 20 years I've been doing this, that 20% is a fair number of what you typically get into for homes when people have the right to refuse you the entry to their home for whatever reason. Years ago, it was because of COVID, but now it could just be because they don't want to. We're doing very well on the commercial end of things. We're only experiencing a 1% refusal. So I think as the process goes, it's going very, very well. I could give you guys an explanation of what a reval is, and why we're revaling and what type of reval we're doing, but I don't want to go over stuff that's already been gone over in past months by either Henry or by Bill in previous months. So if an overview of what is a reval for and why would be helpful, I could do that.
Paul, we have received the update previously from Mr. Ford as it relates to why we're doing the reval, and this year being a physical reval. So I don't think it's necessary to provide that level of detail, but I don't recall receiving an email on the updates on the number of units that have been checked. So we're mainly interested, I would say, in just knowing how the process is moving along, how many units have we covered, and if there's anything that needs to be changed in terms of additional communication or just outreach to the community to gain increase the level of comfort that, you know, we're trying to get this done, and any assistance that we can provide in making that happen.
Well, I could let me flip to the page on my screen that's got the details for what Gary has said. So as I said, Gary estimates that we would be at about 30% of the city properties will have had their initial visits, which is going to put us at 2958, about 8,700 total visits between commercial and residential as of today. And I'm pretty sure that they're definitely at that anticipated level because we've had very good weather. I've got a list of this week where they've been out in the field constantly with between 8 and 10 people every day. I could forward you, I do apologize. I thought I had forwarded you Gary's email from last week, but I could forward it to you now, but it is in the agenda that Chitsame had sent out. I believe the Excel was in there, but I could email it to you now if you would like me to.
You can set after the meeting is fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
So I believe, based on, like I said, with all the years that I've been doing this, that they are moving along very well. They are having a decent experience. As far as communication goes, I believe you could always do more, but I don't think you're ever going to do enough to make everybody happy, short of doing a mass mailing to the entire city, to all 30,000 properties. And that's not what we did this time. This time we advertised all over the place in several media publications, on websites. On the city website, I know that some of the taxing districts also posted it to their websites as they started to learn that we were doing this. I've taken many phone calls with people mostly calling in just to confirm that the people that are knocking on their door are legitimate. I've only had one really bad experience where it appeared that one of the data collectors was picked up on a Ring doorbell And he's been reprimanded for just not being completely professional, and has been told that one more mess up and he's off the team. It wasn't a fireable offense, but it just was not appropriate. So I think we're doing a really good job, and I think that they're doing a really good job, and we're where we want to be at this point in time, maybe even a little bit ahead. I'm working on getting some statistics to try to compare us of how we're doing versus the last time Vision did a large city. They did New Haven in 2021. And Gary Field said that he should be able to get something like statistics for me by the beginning of the next meeting to let us know where we stand as opposed to another city with the same kind of challenges that we face.
Great. Any questions from any of the finance committee members on the reval process? Okay, thank you, Paul, for the update, and we'll look forward to even better numbers in May. As we, each month we go along.
Okay, and I will forward that email to you as soon as I hang up.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you again. Have a great evening.
You too. Okay, we continue on in the agenda, and that moves us to our report from the tax collector's office, which is the claims committee report for April 2023, an interim update narrative on tax collection and the tax collection report. So over to Lisa B.
Good evening. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you. I have the claims report for you for your informational purposes only, because a vote is not required. You did not have any claims in excess of the threshold. So with your permission, I would move along to the next items. Unfortunately, we have not yet closed our month of March. We had a few glitches with our different software system, and we're not getting the types of reports that we were accustomed to getting. But I did want to give you a narrative, and I don't have a spreadsheet for you, and I apologize for that. But as soon as we have one available, I will send it to you and to the Board of Estimate and the other stakeholders. Not having a monthly report to go off of in terms of collection percentages and so forth, I did want to at least do a narrative to update you on what else is going on in the division. Primarily the fact that we were able to send delinquent notices, we were able to wrap up the collection of those motor vehicle supplemental bills that went out a little late. So the collection period for those ended on April 1st. We are finished processing all the mail that we received with that collection period. So that's done. The collection agency that we hired in 2022 is now, we're about 4 months into that, and we have collected through their billing nearly $600,000, which is basically money that was placed into suspense, funds that were not anticipated to be collected because the individuals had, in most cases, moved out of state. And we're not subject to the flag at the Connecticut Department of Motor Vehicles. So we think that that initiative is going very well. They will continue to bill on our behalf. The other issue that we have going forward, we had spoken about our staff shortage, and we are on the verge of onboarding 2 individuals to fill the 2 vacancies that we have had in our division basically since March of last year. They should be on board by the first week of May. So we're very, very grateful to the Human Resources Department for the efforts that they gave with recruiting and now onboarding these 2 new employees. So that's good news. The other thing that I did want to report, and it is in the narrative, were just some initial difficulties with the new software. We're working through it. It's really brand new to all of us. It doesn't operate the way we were accustomed to operating, but we're having a lot of communication with the vendor, Quality Data Service. I had a meeting with them today. We have another meeting with them tomorrow, and we're actually already working on what the bills are going to look like in June as we go forward. So I'm optimistic that things will get better, but as of right now, we're having a little bit of difficulty, and I really appreciate your patience with us as we continue to progress. But I'm here to answer any questions that you may have, or anyone else on the committee.
Are there any members of the finance committee that have any questions about the update? Yes, Council Member Nora Jagelski-Eichner.
Thank you, Chair. And Lisa, I want to first thank you and your team. I know that this has to have been a tremendous lift. And I really appreciate your patience as you work through this new software, and my fingers are crossed that it does get better and turn out to be better in the long run. And I really appreciate all the work that it's taking with your team.
Thank you.
So my second question then is not related to that, but with the debt collection, and I agree that it's terrific that we are, getting revenues. That's always wonderful. But I just, is there some, possibility? I mean, for people for whom the debt collection is some kind of tremendous burden, is there some kind of, way that they can contact you to say, I'm terribly sorry, this is delinquent. I, don't have the ability to pay. I just don't know. I didn't know what our process was for people for whom, the delinquency might cause, really significant financial hardship, or if we have any option around that.
Well, there's a couple different things at play here. In many cases, we've had a bill on our system for a number of years. We were not able to reach the person. The collection agency has, through skip tracing, found them. They've now been notified of this bill. And in many cases, it turns out after speaking with the people, they actually were not in Norwalk during the time period when the vehicle was taxed. So for example, they moved out of state, they drove off with their Connecticut license plates on their vehicle, and they moved to Arizona. And it turns out that they may not be taxable for either all or part of the time period that we were continuing to bill them for. In those cases, they will be dealing with the Office of the Assessor, which is the division that takes items off the tax rolls and issues tax credits, whereas my division is the collection arm of the tax department. We have removed a lot of bills from people who should not have been taxed to begin with. In terms of hardship, people can make partial payments. They're not actually paying the agency, they're paying the city. So if they want to send us money over time, that's perfectly fine. There are probably hundreds of people who are doing exactly that. But in terms of making an adjustment to what is due, we're not allowed to do that any more than we are allowed to do it when we're having a tax sale, or when we're filing a lien, or when someone needs a building permit or a health permit. State law doesn't give tax collectors that type of discretion to negotiate payment amounts due from taxpayers. The debt exists because of the value of the property, with some, very limited exceptions like veterans exemptions and disability exemptions and elderly exemptions, but it's a value-based tax system. Whether they got a bill or not doesn't affect the liability that they incur. They incur the liability through their ownership. So it may be a bitter pill to swallow for individuals, but that is the system with which we are dealing. It hasn't been easy to collect that amount that I told you, that $500,000+. There were literally hundreds of conversations that my staff and I and the assessor's office staff have had with people over exactly the issue that you mentioned, that it is a hardship. It's a lot of money. And in many cases, the amount of the interest due is more than the original tax bill. But the truth is, we do not have the ability to negotiate. We're precluded by state law from doing that. We're audited and I could lose my license over it. So it's not something that I'm able to engage in. And I hope that that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. That's very helpful to understand. And as so many things do, it comes back to the restrictions in the state law and the lack of sympathy state law has for folks who are struggling financially, but certainly not on you. And I really do appreciate the efforts. I mean, certainly, as we all know, we put the money to very good use here. So thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate the work.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
One question I had, I know that when we do any type of software conversion from one system to another, you always have a few bumps and bruises, but nothing catastrophic. So this new software, the issues that you're running into, on a scale of 1 to 3, are they, kind of low 1, or, are they 3, very concerning?
They're concerning. I would say they're probably a 2.5 because I don't like the fact that I'm not able to give you a report that I generally give you. We usually close out our month and have figures by the 3rd day of the next month. We're not able to do that. And chiefly concerning to me is the fact that we're really learning as we go. Other towns don't bill the types of revenue that we do. They don't bill sewer use the way we do. Many of them don't have districts as we do. They don't have multiple mill rates as we do. There's a lot of variables with Norwalk, and we're still trying to get that new system to adapt to the way we bill. And it hasn't been easy, but we're getting there. There's no manual. So we're kind of making our own manual as we go along. But the people in our office who are doing this are very experienced individuals. The assistant tax collector, Al Palumbo, has been with the city more than 30 years. This is his 3rd software in Norwalk and mine as well. I've worked on 7 different softwares in my 39 years in tax collection, and we will get through it. It is no different than any other conversion that any of us have gone through. I'm sure in the private sector, it's exactly the same thing. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And I'm glad you have a level of confidence that we will get through this unscathed in the very short period of time. So that's great.
We have no choice.
No choice. There you go. Okay. Any other questions or comments to our tax collector? Okay, hearing, seeing none. Thank you, Lisa. And as stated, our next full council meeting will be Tuesday, April 25th. So I'm sure that we'll have our customary narrative to share with the full council. So we'll look forward to that.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Continuing the agenda, that moves us to item 9, was to receive the Oak Hills Authority monthly financial statement for February 2023. And we have with us Alan Dutton from Oak Hills. Over to you, Alan.
Good evening, committee. Nice to see you tonight. And a couple of things. So we're looking at February for the month, which is traditionally a pretty quiet month for us here at Oak Hills. On the P&L side, we have budgeted to lose $36,000. We actually lost $34,000 compared to last year, where we actually lost $75,000. So compared to last year, we look well, and a couple of thousand ahead of our budget. On the revenue side, we were on the budget side 17,000 behind in revenue. But 16,000 ahead of last year. So I think the budget that we wrote for February though we spread maybe a little too high. I think we anticipated a little too much ID cards in the month of February, but we have caught up ID card revenue in the month of in the month of March. Expenses, we've been able to save some money on our payroll, basically $8,500 below budget. A lot of that was due to we had a GM position budgeted. We have not filled that position as yet. Our admin expenses were on budget pretty much, and our regular expenses, maintenance expenses were actually under budget on purchases that we'd made on some chemicals, etc. So overall, okay month for us, pretty slow month for us, basically, in the month of February. On a year-to-date basis, however, I'm pleased to say that that the authority, the Oak Hills, is actually doing rather well. We find ourselves $159,000 ahead of our annual budget year to date, and $134,000 over last year's numbers. Made up of two things, basically. We are $83,000 over budget in our revenue. We had a lot more play compared to budget. We've been able to, a lot of people playing at the club, a lot of people from outside of the city are coming up, using the Golf Now system we put in. We're also under expenses by $76,000. Some of that is the GM position, but in general, we were able to save. We did spend a lot more money on water, but our expenses were under. So from a year-to-date basis, we are doing well, may I say, with March, April, May left to go, 3 more months. I'd just like to update the committee also in that we have, in the process of very close to coming to an arrangement with our Dry Dock, who is our concessionaire. And the original agreement with them was for we would receive 10% of their revenue. We didn't do a lot of revenue last year, not as much as we'd like them to have done for various reasons. So he came to us and said it was very not working for him. So we came up with a way of basically going to a lease arrangement. So we have come up with a lease agreement now, whereby we have agreed to charge them a monthly amount over a 12-month period. And that started pretty much on the 1st of April. We have received that first month's payment already. There were some, and he's also paying 70% of the utility expense as well. That continues in the agreement. There were some monies that were owed on the original agreement still, and we have agreed to spread that out over a 12-month period. And the first period has been paid as of the 1st of April over that 12-month period. We also spoke to Dry Dock and a bit more of an accountability with them now, I believe. We put in this agreement, we put the hours of operation when he needs to be open from Tuesday through Sunday. We also put in there what we believe the level of food and beverage should be, maybe not as extensive as it was last year, more of a simple type menu. He doesn't have to staff as much for, and also communication in that if he needs to close, because of bad weather or if the course is closed and there's not enough people there, he can't do that until he checks with either the general manager, which we're looking to hire, or with an authority member, i.e. me most times. So, we're not going to get surprised. And I believe that this arrangement is going to help us. It's helped us already. We are open now. The halfway house is open. We were open this last weekend. The menu is a little easier, not as high a staffing on his part. And I believe that we'll be able to work well with them this year. And that's it. So.
Thank you, Alan. Quick question on the lease. Is that a 12-month lease or?
3 years, basically, 3-year lease, but we still have the out with an escalator on the second year of, I think, a 5% escalation in the second year and a 5% escalation in the third year. We still have the outs like we had with the original agreement, and we can terminate that within 3 months without cause on either side and 2 months with cause. So we still have the ability to, and this is with the city at the moment for final, approval. But yes, it's a 3-year deal with an increase over the second and third years.
Great.
and it's probably within, Don is Dry Dock says that it's easier for him to do it that way, and even easier him to make those payments because he knows exactly what they're going to be.
Okay, any questions from the finance committee as it relates to the update from Oak Hills? Okay, seeing none. Thank you for the update. So in summary, now that we're into the much warmer months, I guess you got through the winter months okay.
Yeah, the place was closed pretty much. We have plenty of cash on hand. We are in good shape. I think there's like $360,000 in cash going into and now, I mean, this last weekend was unbelievable. It was really so. Out of 200 slots, we had 197 open, and the weather it's certainly helping us. And I think in the past I wasn't around, but this is the time when we would have to go into our credit line, which we still have. We do not need to touch the credit line in any way, shape, or form.
Great.
So that's good.
That's good news. Great. Okay, thank you for the update. And
Okay.
We'll look forward for the update in May.
Thank you. Bye.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on in our agenda. Item 10. Item 10, 11, and 12 will be presented by our IT director, Joyce Liu, but we'll take each of them one at a time. So starting with item 10, which reads as follows: authorize the purchasing agent to issue purchase orders to GovConnection for 3 Cisco core switches for a total amount not to exceed $110,721.77. Account number noted. Do we have a motion on this item?
Motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Diana Revelous. So over to you, Joyce, on item 10.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee members. For item 10, this purchase is to replace the 3 old core switches in our data center. It is part of our ongoing network improvements. Core switches are the backbone of the network. So by upgrading our core switches while increasing the performance of the network and overall productivity. Normally a good core switches lasts between 8 to 10 years, ours over 10. So that's that's why we are placing the order right here. We choose Cisco core switches. They are the industry leader and known for their reliability. However, due to the high demand of the Cisco products, currently the waiting time between placing the order and getting the product is between 6 to 9 months. And the cost of the Cisco product might increase anytime. So the attached quote I included is including the 3 core switches, supporting hardware, 3-year Cisco license, and all the supports. I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
One question I have: are we currently using Cisco as a brand? So we're not switching from another operating switch to a different one. It's all Cisco.
Yes. All Cisco.
Okay. Good. Okay. Any questions from the finance committee? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of approval of this motion, either verbally or raise your hand.
Aye.
Nora's hand is up, and a council member, Ed Camacho. Ed, your vote, please. Okay, maybe he's offline, but we have 3 positives. So
No, I'm sorry, that's in the affirmative. I was trying to unmute.
Great, thank you. So it's unanimous. So this item is approved, and we'll move forward to the full council for approval on Tuesday, April 25th. Okay. Moving on to item 11, which reads as follows: authorize the purchasing agent to issue purchase orders to Gov Connections, Inc. for Palo Alto firewall for a total amount not to exceed $154,274.58, account noted. Do we have a motion on this item?
Motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Diana Revelou. So Joyce, back to you on the firewall.
Thank you so much. So this purchase request is for the Palo Alto network firewall. It is also part of our ongoing networking improvement. A firewall is an essential security device that provides the first line of defense against any cyber attack and also meet the compliance requirements. A good and reliable firewall protect the city's digital assets and data from the cyber threat and bad actors out there. So it blocks unauthorized access and control network traffic. We are using our cybersecurity capital fund to cover for this purchase. The quote here in this agenda attachment, including the physical firewall, the initial setup, cable, hardware, license, software support, and training. There will be, so those are the one-time quote cost for this, the firewall, but there will be an ongoing operating cost to maintain the firewall. Start from year 2, we will have the annual software, which is on the agenda, is called Core Security Subscription. And that's around $34,000, which will keep us updated with all the security patches and stay ahead of those evolving cyber threats. And also the Palo Alto network premium support, that's around $13,000. It's going to provide us 24/7 year-round assistance in case we have any issue. The new firewall actually will be able to handle multi-internet service provider. So we will be able to have a backup internet service when our primary internet service is down. I'm here for any question that you have for this item.
Yes, I see Councilmember Nora Najelski-Eichner has a question.
No questions, just thank you very much. Really applaud this purchase, and we're very happy to support it.
Thank you so much.
Great. Do you see any or anticipate any concerns with the conversion from or are we, what are we using currently?
Yes, actually, currently we are outsourcing the firewall to the digital back office, to our internet service provider. So back about 2 months ago, we have an internet service down, and that's about like 17 hours. We have that. So after that incident, we did some research and we started like looking for a city as big as ours, we need to have a second backup solution. So, but we do not have at that time. So while we're doing the research, we realized that if we need to have a second ISP, we need to bring the firewall internally. Yeah, so we are, and now we have a team of network team that willing and have experience to do that, but they also need certain training. So that's why we're putting training dollar amount for them to keep them up to the speed. So that's why we are have initial setup. So eventually, once we have everything set it up going forward, it will be the cost will be just stay with software, the premium software subscription and the support. Great.
That's great news that this firewall upgrade will allow us to have backup ISP support, which is great. That's good news. Okay, are there any
Doing
other,
that one thing at a time.
right? Are there any other, are there any questions or comments from the Finance Committee? Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of this authorization, please raise your hand or verbal aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 1, 2, 3.
Aye.
And it's unanimous. Thank you. So Joyce, this item will also move to the full council on Tuesday, April 25th for full council approval. And then finally, item 12, which reads as follows: authorize the mayor to entering into contract with Security 101 Connecticut for Veterans Park Camera System installation amount not to exceed $68,949. Account numbers noted, and one account number will address $51,711.75, and the second account number will address $17,237.25. Do we have a motion on the security camera item?
Motion.
Thank you, Council Member Diana Revelous, and Joyce, back to you.
Thank you so much. So IT joined the police department and awarded a FEMA grant on enhancing the port security. So part of the grant is allocated to install the security camera at Newark Harbor area. So Newark Police Safety and Public Safety, they are always desire to install the network of the surveillance security camera in the Newark Harbor and beach area in order to improve the protection and for the crowded space. So with our purchase department's help, so IT have open bid from Quality First. Security 101 Connecticut has won the bid of the port security camera installation project. So the contract with the Security 101 Connecticut, including adding 3 high definition cameras around the Veterans Park area. So you will be able to see on the agenda item 12, page 32, that's where the location of the camera. So the fund source for this project will be 75% covered by FEMA, and then FEMA grant account, and 25% covered by IT capital account. Please let me know if you have any question or concern regarding to this purchase of this agreement.
And that was a FEMA grant, you said?
Yes.
Oh, great. Do we have any questions or comments from any of the Finance Committee members? Okay, seeing and hearing none, this will be a great, always looking to improve our security coverage, and these additional cameras will be in line with doing that. So that's great. At this point, I'll call for the, question. All those in favor, show by raise of hand or verbal.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Great. Thank you, Joyce. And once again, we'll move this item to the full council at the next meeting on Tuesday, April 25th for full council approval.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on in the agenda, item 13, which reads as follows: authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a contract with Infomed Services for assistance in complying with the OSHA hazardous communication standard for the Department of Public Works, Oak Hills Golf Course, Norwalk Police Department, and Norwalk Fire Department, respectively, for a period beginning May 1st, 2023 through May 1st, 2024, and total annual cost not to exceed $70,750, and the account number is noted. Do we have a motion on this item?
motion,
Thank you, Councilmember Diana Revelous. And we have with us Craig Smith, who is our risk manager, to present this item.
Great, thanks everyone. Good evening, Finance and Claims Committee members. Yep, just as a quick background, back in late in 2022, the city had a programmed inspection from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, Connecticut OSHA, and Connecticut OSHA enforces certain workplace safety standards. And one area that during this program inspection, they visited 4 departments, those that are listed, and they cited each department as being deficient complying with the hazardous communications standard. This standard, also known as the employee right to know, requires employers to notify employees what chemicals they may be working with or be exposed to in the workplace. So employers have to do 5 things to comply with this standard. We have to have an inventory of chemicals. We have to properly label the containers. You have to have safety data sheets, as well as a written program, and provide training to employees. So there's 5 things employers have to do. And to pull us forward, I would like to engage a company called Enviromed to help us comply with the standard. Left to our own devices, it's sometimes hard to get all this information on our own. So engaging Enviromed will help us comply with the standard in a timely fashion, which is what OSHA desires, as well as qualitatively get us to a point where we will be up to code. This standard started back in the 80s, and it changes over time. So we had certain things in place when OSHA visited, but again, placarding for labeling, the inventory list wasn't is complete. So we need some help to get us to comply. There are 4 departments cited: Public Works, Oak Hills, Police Department, and Fire Department. So we'd like to have Environment visit each department, help us get the inventory of chemicals, and do a site visit for the labeling, so we can bring us in the code. I also asked for them to audit us after a year or 2, just to make sure we don't backslide or we keep this program current. If we're going to do a lot of work to get there, we want to keep it in place. So hope that gives you a little bit of insight as to why we're here and why we went out to bid for this service. Any questions?
One question I have is, will this service also provide any level of training to Norwalk staff, so that after this period of time is over, that we might be able to maintain the level of awareness of the inventory, chemicals, labeling, et cetera, and not have the need to extend the contract? That there's some learnings that we can acquire internally and continue to be compliant?
Yeah, great. That's a great question. Right, it's the sustainability. That's what really
right. So that we, each year we don't have to go to them and say we need help. That after this period of time where they're coming in, for the first time and doing the inventory, the labeling, and sharing with us the things we're supposed to be doing, that internally we can pick up that level of sustainability going forward, so that we're always in compliance.
Yeah, no, that's I love the way you're thinking, Greg. Right, it's raising the bar, but it's keeping it there.
Right.
And I think in Enviromed specifically, we're going to engage them to help us raise the bar, and then they're going to audit us after a year. But going forward, we're not going to use Enviromed to do this, because what I want to do is build an infrastructure. I have another internal or maybe get some external help too, to do kind of mock audits or mock inspections, so we don't backslide. So it'd be probably a different vendor. It definitely would be a different vendor. But I've thought about that too, Greg, where we want to have, I can envision either me or, again, an outside service coming in and going, visiting each of these departments and saying, hey guys, where are we at? are we up to date with our inventory? And so we don't have to, right,
Right.
look back and say, wow, so it's not getting dust. So it won't be Enviromed, but it'll be a different vendor. We get loss prevention services from our insurance broker, insurance carrier, other resources that I'm looking at really lining up so we can go out and do this, and departments will know, hey, we're looking for this stuff. And if we find deficiencies, we'll correct them on our end, so we don't have to go through, because OSHA will be back, no doubt about it. They will be
Right.
back for this stuff. So it won't be Environment, like I said, Greg, but it'll be another firm that we, again, really think it's important. We went through a lot to go with OSHA, not just this, but other standards. We can't afford to, we're doing a lot of good work to get up to meet certain standards. I think we'll put together infrastructure. I'll work with Henry on getting a vendor in here, like I said, to really keep the momentum going.
Maybe we can look to maybe even a peer review with another city that's, looks like, that is structured the same way Norwalk is. And we'll have a certain level of expertise, and we can do a peer review for that particular city. And in turn, they can come look at Norwalk, and at minimal to no cost, we can help each other maintain that high level of awareness. So just a thought.
Yeah, I like that thought. It's your step back.
I would add, this reminds me a lot of our cybersecurity, where we do training, but it's combined with testing. So on a regular basis, we engage firms that send out phony phishing emails, and we see who clicks on what types of emails. And then based on the results, we give additional training to those individuals to ensure that they're doing the right thing. So as Craig indicated, I think we have an ongoing program where we're sort of testing the system to see where we are. And insurance carriers are great at providing services very inexpensively. It's in their best interest to make sure we comply. So we could probably coordinate with them on doing some sort of regular testing. We're not the only clients that have this, and then additional training as we need.
Great. Councilmember Nora Najelski-Eichner.
Thank you. And thank you all for pulling together this contract. It certainly seems like a good use of resources to save money in the future. I just wanted to quickly check, are there other departments that were not audited by OSHA, but might have chemicals on site such that they would be subject to such an audit potentially at some point? And are they being included or thought about for this contract or for subsequent ones?
Yeah, right, Nora. That's right. OSHA specifically visited those 4 departments, so we're going to focus on those 4. But you're right. There are chemicals within Parks and Recs. There are chemicals within the health department. Right. We have to do this, pollinate this elsewhere too, and that would probably come kind of like what I was touching with Greg and what Henry mentioned. We'll get those resources probably elsewhere, not through this contract with Enviromed. Part of this, I just want to use Enviromed to meet the OSHA standard, because they're looking over our shoulder right now. But for other departments, we may use, we'll probably engage somebody, a carrier. And if we find that we're so far behind the curve, maybe we go back to Enviromed. But hopefully, we just need to tweak here and there for other departments. But yeah, this is not. While we're focusing on these 4 departments, there are others that that do come under the standard, and we have to make sure that they're where they should be.
And this will give you the resources to sort of assess that and make decisions going forward. So it just makes sense. Great, fabulous. Well, thank you. I certainly, again, I support. This seems like a wise approach.
Thanks.
Great. Do we have any additional comments or questions from the Finance Committee? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of this authorization show by a virtual raise a hand or verbal.
Aye.
All right, thank you. It's unanimous. So Craig, this item will move to the full council for approval at the next council meeting, which will be on Tuesday, April 25th. Thank you. Moving on, in the agenda, item 14 is to discuss and approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 parking authority budget. And let's see, I see we have Jessica Vonacek, our Chief of Economic and Community Development, and is James Travis also presenting? I don't see him.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
there he
I'm-
is. Oh, there
yeah.
we go.
I'm here,
All
Chairman.
right.
How are you?
Oh, great. Thank you. All right. So over to you for the parking authority budget.
Certainly. The budget presented to you today, we spent a little time running through it. We think, we feel very confident that the budget is a sustainable budget. It shows a slight uptick in monthly revenue forecasted. We are seeing a little bit of an increase come back to the monthly users. We're still navigating through the challenges and changing workforce of COVID. And so we haven't seen the garage return to the wait list that we had in the past, but we are seeing some positive numbers increase in that. We have seen relatively good transient revenue coming out of this. But we are showing a slight decrease in that as a portion of the North Water Street lot will come out of commission as work continues to advance on the Walk Bridge project. I think in the biggest thing, we are showing a bit of a increase in expense from payroll. We are adding a customer service position into the New Haven bound side of the train station. We've spent this year outfitting an office space. We'll have someone positioned over there, as well as adding a maintenance person to the Soto Garage. Really, our desire has been upgrading the level of customer service, and as people return back, that we greet, that they're seeing the best that Norwalk has to offer when they're coming to or leaving from our train station. The team for St. Patrick's Day handed out green carnations to people coming and going. So we hope to do more things like that, reinforcing a message of Park Norwalk, which is a new branding effort that's come out of here. The budget does continue to show, each of the facilities, in its entirety. Maritime, obviously still does very well for us. The Maritime, we are in constant contact with the Maritime Aquarium, which is the largest user of the garage. That continues to show positive revenue sources, and we continue to work with the redevelopment agency, as plans continue on for the Webster lot revitalization. I guess that is I think the basic gist of where we are. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Oh, yes, our CFO.
Jim, I'm curious, what have you done, if anything, about rates and fees? I assume, and the question is, in the volume assumptions, are we back to pre-pandemic yet or not yet?
We're not. So it's a mix, right? So we're not back to pre-pandemic volumes for monthly parkers in the garages. We are seeing an increase of transient use, particularly that in the on-street meters, and in the transient, the transient options that we have. So there's movement there. We're just not back to that full volume yet. I think we're looking to present a budget that is sustainable and supportable, but also respectful to our residents who use the facilities. I think when necessary, we will look at rate changes. But I think at this point we were able to enter this year without an increase in fees.
You keep saying sustainable. in accounting land, an enterprise fund like the parking authority is supposed to have revenues equal to expenses. Is that your projections?
So I think we're going to have some revenue in so so what we've done in, this year it will be the first year that we're not bonding, capital bonds, for improvements. We're really looking at, how we can create those improvements that happen in a sustainable manner where we can improve our facilities without actually incurring long-term debt to pay those off. So we think we're going to be really sustainable in doing that this year with some investment that we're making to the Yankee Doodle Garage as part of the greater Wall Street corridor improvements. And then we are currently working with a consultant on conditions assessment. I, in fact, am meeting him tomorrow to go over, the conditions assessment and the prioritization of work that we've done there. One of the projects that we have incorporated in this budget, not looking to do capital bonding, is we are doing improvements to the lavatory facilities in the Sono train station, where we'll have auto flush toilets, we'll have sensors for the water so they don't stay, doesn't stay running. So that's that. When I say sustainable, that's where we have. I think ultimately what I would like to see, is that we manage our budget very closely throughout the year, and that we end up in a positive frame, and then that goes into build up the funds back into the budget, so that where it's I want to build up our reserves. I think a little bit more extent than where we have today. We did use reserves in the height of COVID, and we did deplete some of those. I think we have an opportunity to bring some of that back into there.
Right. And again, the way I interpret the word sustainable is financially sustainable, where it's break even, and that you cover the debt service for the debt that's already outstanding.
Yep.
It sounds like that's where you are, and your goal is to try to run a bit of a surplus and then use those funds in future years. Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Jim, one question I had, did you build into the budget any, you mentioned, giving out the carnations and et cetera, but did you build into the budget any other, which I'll say, client-friendly initiatives, like maybe, a few weekends of no parking fees at all? Or certain events when there's, parking fees won't be collected, those kind of give backs to the community. Is any of that innovation built into the budget?
So we have included in the budget, an innovation program that I don't want to steal the thunder of the Parking Authority Board.
Okay.
But because they're going to announce something relatively soon that I think that we're all very proud of. It will be the first in the nation. But I think people will see it as a huge plus and to that aspect of what you're looking at. But what we did include into the budget is not necessarily those types, because I think when we offer the free parking, this one, you pay for parking that time, it does confuse the end user. When we have consistency, it actually runs a network a little bit better. But I think that we could look at what we did look in great and put into the budget is more events that could, positively portray, Norwalk and Park Norwalk, in positive light, but also looking at how we could engage, in restaurants, in better programs that actually support people coming in to the city. So in those types of mechanisms, that's included.
Great, thank you. Yes, Councilmember Nora Nadelski-Eichner.
Thank you, Chair. So I was sort of following up along that, and I'm pleased to hear that it sounds like something is coming from the Parking Authority. And so, but and I believe this issue came up a little bit in the BET as well, but it is the disproportion between the violation revenue and the meter revenue. And as I read the budget, the sort of costs of enforcing the meters relative to the revenue it raises, I mean, again, you all are the experts, and so I certainly defer to your expertise, but it does make me wonder a little bit, is this really the best way to approach, particularly given our, real focus on revitalizing Wall Street and Washington Street? I'm just curious to hear, again, given your expertise on this, are we really getting the best bang for our buck out of the meters? Is this really the right way to go?
So, so I think there's a couple things. I would like to, I know that we had some challenges with this in the BET, right? I think there was some personal issues that, that were being raised. But when we look in the last page of the report that is submitted into the budget is a graphical form of, the revenue. What we're really seeing is, you're looking at meters when the violations aren't a one-to-one association with their meters, right? They are meters, they're parking in parking spaces, they're people parking in a crosswalk, they're double parking, they're blocking parking. So the violations aren't one-to-one with meters. But they are only 20%, right? Of what we're looking at. So, and when we look, we do look in the board, the board does look very heavily, we're seeing about 2% of the people that the parking transactions result in a citation, which is actually lower than what we see in many other communities. I have been in 2 other communities where paid parking. I can tell you that we won't have any type of revitalization if we don't have managed parking, right? And I will retell a story that was told to me when someone was pointing out when Liberty Square went from no paid parking to paid parking. And then suddenly people had to pay, and they're like, "Oh, it was so unfair." And I got told, like, "You don't know, you weren't here." But at that time, we didn't really have stores, many stores that were there. And I said, "But now we have managed parking, and all the stores are occupied." And I think that's what you get. You have the turnover that gets created in managed parking. But I do think that we have opportunities to present it in a more positive light. I do think that we have to promote ourselves better. We have been working hard at a rebrand of Park Norwalk, a very inclusive part of inviting people into the city center, making investments into new meters, making investments into the facilities. The parking authority is making what will probably equate to nearly $1.5 million investment into improvements to the Yankee Doodle Garage that supports that. Those are all investments that are not made by tax dollars. They're made by users, reallocating the funding that comes from it. I do believe that if you really look at really very successful communities, there is a managed parking. But I also think that at the same time, we have to be respectful to that. We have to understand it. I think that's why, in times where, the economy is rough for some people and we're seeing inflation high, that we really tried very hard to present a budget that didn't show, a rate increase, while the parking authority is still absorbing the cost of sales tax, right? And not transferring that over to the end user, right? But I do think that, I think I'm along with your answer, Councilperson, and I apologize, but, I think that this is the right approach. And I think that we have spent a very long time trying to changing the perception of what we have here. We have piloted new signage in the Wall Street area that has been proven to be effective in helping to clear up confusion of where to park and how to park. And we look to advance that in our budget. We have money to change that signage, clarify that signage, adding it to other communities. And I think that we continue to just conflate the meters with the violations when in fact the violations happen for a number of things, but also when we have a meter such as Wall Street that's 25 cents an hour, right? We're never going to be in that. We don't have a 25 cents parking ticket, right? So it's there are always going to be the revenue coming from violations, and they also extend, faster. But we do make every effort offering people a reduction to pay within 24 hours and looking at different services. But your concerns are heard, and we do work consistently at addressing those on a regular basis.
Thank you for your insight. It's interesting to hear, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the parking authority is going to be proposing. So thank you.
Okay, you'll hear news pretty soon, hopefully.
Great. Any other questions or comments as it relates to the parking authority budget for fiscal year 2023-24?
I do. I have a quick
Yes.
question.
Yeah, Council
Yes, ma'am.
Member Diana Revelous.
Yeah. Kind of following what Councilwoman Chelsea Eichner said, I just wanted to know if there was any particular data on actual, like, how do I explain this? Like, let's say inconsistencies or discrepancies that maybe, you know, in parking, because you're saying how clear it is, right? Like making it clearer, the signage. But what happens in rates of like, there is a misunderstanding. There was accidental imprint of or input of license number. How are those things handled? Is there data on how often does that actually happen? Hence, is that enough to be like a point of notable deduction? Is it handled in an efficient, time effective, and customer service type of friendly manner to our constituents? It just made me think about certain dynamics I've been told and experienced, and I just wanted to know if that's a data point at all.
Yes, so we watch it very closely. I think there's a twofold. So the the issuer of a ticket has an opportunity to appeal the ticket, that and we work very closely with our operator to make sure that those appeals are returned in a timely manner, so that people don't sit out there wondering what's happened. So we look for responses to happen in a timely manner. If that response is not in favor of the citation holder, right, where they're still deemed liable, then they have an ability to do a second appeal. That second appeal becomes an in-person appeal, and we actually have our corp counsel, be the person who hears that, who reviews the data. So the operator will present their reasoning behind issuing a ticket. Our corp counsel will then listen to the violators or ticket holder, because we don't know about we don't say violator yet. Their reasoning behind it, right? And then make a determination. And then yes, we do continually look at what type of violations are occurring, and are there things that we could do to make it better, right? So I think some of the more recent things that we've done is, we have worked with the Parks Department to re-sign all of our beach parking. So when people come back, their beach signs, and we did this last year and reinforcing it again this year with the redo of Calf Pasture Beach. But another item that there is confusion and dislike from the user regarding the angle parking on Wall Street, and we presented that to the board. And we are currently in plans to remove that and return it to parallel parking, because that's what we heard from the businesses that they wanted. So I think we are in many respects, responsive to either the businesses who are there benefiting from managed parking, and the violators who are concerned with it. But those call outs to signage was really about observations that we saw, even absent of it, but then looking at the data and saying, we're having a little bit more violations that are occurring here. Is the signage clear? Has signage gotten hit? Did it knocked down that we didn't know about? So I very much on a proactive base, we are managing that data. Yes.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
Great. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of approving the fiscal year 2023-2024 Parking Authority budget, show by a virtual raise a hand or verbal.
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous. So thank you, Jim, for that presentation. And we will move
Thank you,
this
sir.
forward to the full council at the April 25th meeting for full council approval.
Thank you. You have a wonderful evening. Thank you, council members. Have a good night.
Great. Good night. Okay, that moving along in the agenda, item 15 is to discuss and approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 Water Pollution Authority budget. And do we have a motion on this item?
Motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Diana Revelous. And we have with us to present the budget, our Chief of DPW, Vanessa Valadares, along with the Supervisor of Environmental Engineer, Ralph Cole. So over to you to present the WPCA budget.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Ralph Cole will do the presentation for you tonight.
Great.
Good evening, everyone. The WPCA is an enterprise fund for the city of Norwalk, and we oversee the operation and maintenance of a 18 MGD wastewater treatment plant, approximately 205 miles of collection system, and 22 sanitary sewer pump stations. Some highlights of the memo that I included in the board package include on February 21st of this year, the WPCA Board of Directors approved a 3.5% rate increase for sewer fees. Annually, the WPCA is a dynamic financial model, which annually we work with all the key stakeholders like the mayor's office, the finance, the WPCA Board of Directors. We update that model to include their feedback along with the operating and capital needs for the WPCA. And that projects rates and helps the finance team on future bonding as well. Our partner, Veolia, is finishing up their third year for contract operations in Norwalk. Some accomplishments that we've achieved over the last year, we've been able to enhance the collection system. We finished installing 14 smart covers throughout the collection system, which monitors the wastewater level. And if levels start to be elevated, it alerts the collection crew to go out and see what's going on. Is there a blockage? What's the issue? And that way we are able to resolve an issue before it becomes a backup or a sewage spill. Veolia has been using drone technology to fly within larger interceptor pipes, any pipe that's 36 inches or larger, for inspection. So they fly a drone and they're able to inspect the structural integrity and condition of the pipe. In addition, at the 22 pump stations, we're continuing to put in backup control systems. So if the primary control system fails, the backup system will kick in and prevent a sewage backup into homes, residences, businesses, or into the environment. Several of the key operating budget line items to note include on the revenue side, the rate increase of 3.5% equates to an increase of $14 per residential unit, $20 per commercial flat rate, and 35 cents per 1,000 gallons for water consumption. Norwalk is set or scheduled to receive nitrogen credits from 2022. It appears that we ranked 5th in the state. There's about, I think, 79 municipalities, and Norwalk is right now number 5 for calendar year 2022. On the revenue side, we do invoice the city of Norwalk for services the WPCA provides to the city, and that's just over $136,000 in revenues that we anticipate. On the expenditure side, the O&M fee for Veolia increased 4% due to inflation. We also have a line item for reimbursement. So the WPCA pays the city for services that the city provides to the WPCA, namely sewer billing by the tax assessor, tax collector, and other finance services, IT services, to mention a few. So that's just over $692,000. And lastly, the debt service payments are flat from last year, but we do anticipate future increases due to future planned capital projects. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, that was extremely thorough. Thank you, Ralph. Do we have any questions from any the finance committee? Yes, I see two, Council Member Nora Jelski Eichner, followed by our Chief Financial Officer, Henry Dakowitz.
And actually, Henry, my question is really more for you. I noted that the WPCA is working on a 5-year budget cycle, with projections outward. And I know this is something we talked a little bit in terms of the city budget. And so I was just curious, when you look at their sort of 5-year cycle, do you see value for the city moving to something like that as a model? And I'm interested in your comments on kind of what is and is not feasible for us in terms of being able to think a little bit more long-term. I know that obviously by state law, we can't implement a budget for more than 1 year, but I did find the projection process potentially helpful. So I was curious about your thoughts.
Well, thank you. I was going to compliment Ralph and the WPCA. They've contracted with a financial consulting firm. Remember, because they're an enterprise fund, their revenues are targeted to equal their expenses, including debt service. Obviously, their revenues are driven by the rates they charge and the usage they expect. The kicker is the capital expenditures. So Ralph and team have understood that there are major capital improvements that are required in the next 5 to 10 years. And the model allows them to project operating expenses, capital budgeting requirements, and translate that with projections for borrowings and the interest rate costs of those borrowings, which come back into the operating budget as debt service. The goal here was to avoid a roller coaster of rate changes, where there's a big significant move up and then there's a significant move down, and we think that users would object to that. So the goal was to say, let's set up a policy on how we're going to handle rate increases so they are smooth as possible, but will generate enough debt service revenue so that we cover all of our expenses. So to me, it's pretty sophisticated in what it's trying to accomplish. And we ended up with a certain amount of rate increase every year. I'm not going to mention the number because I don't have it off the top of my head, but there's a certain consistency that the users can handle with predictability. Okay, our rates are going to go up by X% every year. And during the course of those 5 to 10 years, sufficient revenue will be generated to cover all of those expenditures. It also allows me to borrow the funds opportunistically in the market as best we can so that we get the capital funds at the lowest cost possible and we have the funds available when the WPCA needs to expend those funds. So it's a very, I'm going to say, sophisticated model that integrates general operating expenses, the changes in population trend, in usages, and in capital expenditures, combined with the financial impacts so that the users are treated fairly with reasonable consistency for their expectations. I think that's very different from what the city does for our budgeting. Our budgeting tends to be, we have an operating budget, we have expenses we have to cover, and we have to figure out how to fund that. And lately, we've been funding that with increased intergovernmental grants from the state or the federal government, like the ARPA, drawdowns from the rainy day fund, and the rest comes from taxes. On a separate side, we have all of our capital expenditures. Unfortunately, from my perspective, with the most recent capital budget, we have over $200 million of capital projects that have been approved that have not yet been bonded. We are pushing against a limit of how much we can borrow given our economics and maintain a AAA rating. And there may have to be allocations. So doing a 5-year forecast The problem with 5-year forecasts is that the accuracy and credibility or the potential error rate increases with each year as you go out. I think with WPCA, they have enough data that error rate per year isn't that bad. But given the way the city fluctuates, given the way the Board of Ed's requirements keep increasing at accelerating rates, I can't see doing more than 2 years at a time. And even after the first year of a 2-year plan, we would have to re-examine the numbers. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Actually, yes, that was very interesting to think about. And I think it gives us some thought for the future. So thank you, Henry. I appreciate that.
Any additional questions or comments related to the WPCA future budget? Okay, again, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of approval of the budget as presented?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. So we will move the WPCA budget to the full council on Tuesday, April 25th for full council approval. Thank you for the thorough presentation. Come ready to duplicate that possibly on the 25th. And thank you for all the good work that you do for the WPCA. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee, Mr. Dakowitz. Thank you for everything. Have a good night.
Thanks, Ralph.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Okay, the final item on the agenda is the appointment of the auditors to audit fiscal year 2023. Do we have a motion on this item?
Motion.
Thank you, Council Member Diana Revelous, and we have our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Dakowitz, to share this information.
Thank you. I've been here now 4 years. The first year, we had the firm RSM, who had been auditing us for 10 years. We did an RFP, and quite unexpectedly, RSM withdrew from their bidding. It turns out they were making a strategic decision to withdraw from the government auditing sector. And I confirmed this with industry contacts. We were very pleased to hire Bloom Shapiro at that time, and we have just finished our 3rd year with them. So the first year with a new auditor is usually very painful for the controller, because all of the assumed knowledge that a 10-year audit firm would have has to be re-examined. They question everything. They want to see the contracts. They want to see the documentation. An audit firm often loses money on the first year of a contract because they have so many extra services they have to render. So usually the 2nd year and 3rd year are easier. After the first year, Bloom Shapiro merged with the national firm Clifton Larson Associates. So although they had gotten to know us, Clifton Larson had to get to know Bloom Shapiro. So again, it was a little bit of a painful audit, but more for our auditors than for us. By now, this 3rd year, we have a very smooth, good working relationship. The partner, the managers are the same. There's a little bit of turnover at the bottom as they train new people. But this was one of the smoothest audits I've ever seen. And we also had to implement a new GASB pronouncement. That's the Government Accounting Standards Board. I believe it was 87. It was all about leases. And we worked closely with Clifton Larson, and we got everything done accurately, on time, very, very smoothly. So we're very pleased with them. We're coming into years 4 and 5 of a 5-year contract. I believe their audit fee got bumped by about $2,000 or $2,500 a year. We're very satisfied with them. We want to renew them. And at the end of the 4th year with them, we will probably do another RFP unless we decide to renew them for the extensions that are allowed in the contract.
Henry, just to remind me, so this is year 4 or 5 that we're going into, or year 3?
Right, we have completed 3 audits with them. We're entering year 4. And with a 5-year contract, at the end of year 4, we would start talking to Sharon Connors and looking at an RFP, unless we decide to extend the contract as we normally build into multi-year contracts.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments related to the approval of the auditor? I can just state that during the audit review process, the information was very clear, and they addressed any questions that the audit committee had. So currently very happy with the work that they produced for Norwalk.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of approving the auditor as presented, show by virtual raise a hand or verbal.
Aye.
Okay, very good. It's unanimous. So we'll move this to the full council on Tuesday, April 25th for full council approval.
Thank you.
Great. With that, item 17.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, on cue. Thank you. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Have a great rest of your evening. Thank you for your participation. I know it was a little long meeting, but we had a lot of items to cover. So we stand adjourned at 8:36 p.m.